All right. Hello, everyone. A little bit early, starting early. I'm ready to go though, so hopefully everybody can see me and hear me okay. Let me know in the chat. We'll go ahead and get things livened up here. So, since I'm a little early, let's go ahead and check out the branches and so forth first. So let's, get check out 8.x, get pull upstream 8.x. Just make sure we have all the latest changes. This is going to go to the latest Laravel version 8.x, so we'll make sure to kind of branch off it. So yeah, let's just get a little backstory here. I jump back out to Chrome. So earlier in the week, I had kind of PR'd two things that I wanted to kind of see in the framework. They had come up a few times over the last month of working on applications, not only my own, but also some client applications. And I just thought, these would be great to kind of have in there. And this one, in fact, this encrypted Eloquent cast had been attempted before several times, but again, I think, kind of like I talk about in the live stream and in the PR, I think the framework wasn't as evolved as it was now. And I think, again, more importantly, that with encryption being kind of a first-class feature of Laravel, it would be nice to kind of take away any friction towards encrypting model data or persisting encrypted data for your models. So again, you can already encrypt things very easily with the crypt facade. That's awesome. It's first class inside of Laravel. So again, it would be nice to promote security and so forth by being able to persist that encrypted data, again, with a very low barrier to entry, very easy thing. And the arguments before were that, well, you can make a custom cast and yada yada, and of course you can. But again, I think Laravel has grown and has a lot more quality of life improvements now than it did in like Laravel 5.3 when this was kind of early attempted, and it's been attempted since. But anyways, doesn't matter now because it's been merged, which is awesome. But I do think there were some good comments, and even like I said in the video the other day, that there could be a need for maybe a more complex data type that you want to encrypt. You might not always be encrypting a string. Now, ultimately, we would be encrypting a string, but the point is maybe that string represents JSON or some other kind of serialized object. So it would be nice to kind of support those additional properties, and I kind of proposed in a comment doing support those additional data types. And I kind of proposed that as well here with like JSON or object in this kind of colon, format, very similar to the date format. You can say date colon y-m-d, right? So just, again, it feels very natural. It's very Laravel. So I think we'll go ahead and PR that today. Just because I have a little extra time. I was kind of chatting actually with Taylor about this, and I think he agreed that would be kind of a good addition, and then from there on anything else could be kind of a custom cast. So that's what we're going to be working on this Friday afternoon. Hey Adrian, how's it going? Cool. So again, already checked out the Laravel 8.x branch, so now let's do a git checkout -b, encrypted object casts. There we go. All right, and let's fire up the old PHP storm. And if I remember right, we called that like encrypted cast test. Here we go. Cool. So, what we probably want to do is actually make this very, very similar to the JSON cast test. And here we go. Yeah. So we kind of want to do this in a way. So let me bring this over, and then I'll kind of explain the reasoning here. Hey Natine, hey Jeffrey, how's it going? So what I want to do is make a model that has kind of this stuff encrypted, and it'd be nice to be able to kind of get that back out the same way kind of the JSON fields work. So ultimately what we're talking about here, just for like a little bit of backstory, kind of setting up this test. So bringing to life what we were talking about a minute ago, we can say something like secret uh, array. Let's just go through all the different data types. And this would be something like array, and we would have secret JSON, and you could say something like JSON, and we have secret object, and this is object, and then finally collection, and you would have collection. So that way you could, in a way, kind of effectively achieve what some of the stuff in the comments are talking about. And in a way, it would be nice to have being able to encrypt any kind of value and then cast it. I personally think there's some value there. So for example, another comment suggested like, well, what if we added an encrypted, property to models? And here we said something like, secret array as an example. And that would allow us down here to say something more along the lines of just array, just the standard cast that already exists. Because we're kind of doing something here, in my opinion, where we're starting to rebuild kind of this nested layer where you would almost want all the casts types over here, potentially. Now, I don't know how practical that is, so I don't know if that's actually going to happen, but even just in building these four, it kind of makes me feel like maybe this kind of encrypted property might make more sense. But that's not necessarily, again, what we discussed and what was in the comments, so I want to do kind of what was asked in a way. We'll start there, and as we've seen, we can continue to kind of tweak this, right? Especially, we could completely redo it, for Laravel 9 or something. Who knows what the community might want. So I don't want to speculate. Let's just kind of make what happens here. So let's change these to secret. We'll just say secret array, secret, JSON, secret object, and secret. What was the last one? Collection. Yeah, these are just all a bit off. And now the interesting thing is it's not actually a JSON field underneath. It's still going to end up being a string. But the funny thing is that we don't really know how large this data is. So like, part of me almost thinks that needs to end up being a text field. Again, this is just a test, but I'm going to make that a text field because, if you're encrypting an arbitrary object, you're going to make it a certain bit larger just by the nature of the encryption. So yeah, if you're going to encrypt objects, you probably need to make them like text fields, to be honest. So something to consider for the documentation. So let's go back and take a look at kind of how this works. So this just works kind of independently, all the different types. So, let's do the same thing. And we'll just say something like test strings are castable, test arrays are castable. And let's slow down and we'll just do kind of one at a time. I think that's enough kind of TDDing this type of stuff. So what we can do is we can say something like secret array, and this will be, what do you actually pass in when you want to create this? Do you actually pass in an array? Or is an array JSON data? Is it just a shorthand for JSON data? I always forget. I think an array cast just automatically stores things as JSON, if I remember right. I never really use just array. I've used JSON, but not the array. Let's see here. Model casts. All right. So, oh wait, that's not exactly what we want. Casts. Custom casts. Attribute casting. Okay, so what happens when you make something an array? Kind of doesn't really say. Based on the test here, though, is there a model array casts? I don't think so. Model. I don't think there's an array casts. Yeah, see, these are all just being cast as JSON. And if I remember right, working the other day on this, I'm pretty sure when we look at it, arrays just a shorthand for JSON anyway. So we'll just make these JSON fields. and we can borrow some of the code that's already here. So here's arrays, so let's just borrow this. Key value, doesn't really matter how many there are in here, right? Cool. And so we're kind of going to expect the same thing when we pull that out. So we can just continue to copy and paste that. And we could set up our test to say, see, that's going to get encrypted. This is where it gets a little bit, this is where that test is a little low level, and I'm not a huge fan of this. Because really this is going to get, you kind of have to know under the covers that, like, yeah, Laravel turns this into this, right? So it's going to get that, and it's going to return encrypted secret array string. Yeah. And then it's going to kind of do the opposite when it comes back. So let's do this. This is enough to run, I think. So let's look for encrypted cast. We'll run this test from the day. Okay, so array to string conversion. That makes sense. I imagine if we go look at the has attributes, model builder processor string. I would have expected it in has attributes, but I guess maybe it doesn't show the trait. Maybe it just considers it model. So let's go take a peek at what's going on here. So what we have is we set up the encryptor so we can control encryption. The other day I was trying to do stuff with app key and make it more of an integration test, but it's because the encryption, I believe, is like also has an element of the timestamp in the salt. It's something that's a bit hard to control. And I noticed in other tests in Laravel they were controlling the underlying encryptor. So I think this is okay. But again, it'd be nice if I didn't have to do this and I could just kind of work with encrypted hashes somehow. But anyway, we're going to set the secret array. Okay, so this is wrong, so that needs to be that. Okay, so we're going to make one of our encrypted casts model, which is down here, secret array. And then we want to assert that when we access the secret array, it's going to be just the standard key value pair that we put in. So it gets basically decrypted as well as cast into an array. And then in the database, it should basically be the encrypted value, which is mocked up here to ultimately be a JSON set of data. So when we encrypt it, we're going to expect to have JSON string, and then we're going to set it to our encrypted value, which is just this pre-formatted, predetermined value, so we can do that database test as well. So I think everything's set up here. I think probably what it's running into is, again, pretty low level in model. I bet you, of course, it has no idea what kind of cast that is, and it's just, you know, choking. So let's clean this up though while we're at it. So this will be secret array, this will be secret JSON, secret object, secret collection. All right, cool. And, oh, sorry. This is still going to keep failing, of course. Just for giggles, let's go see what's on model line 1736. So let's just take a peek. 1736. Call new static method. I wonder what method it's trying to call. This is probably going to, since this is such a low level thing, this is probably going to dump out a lot of crap, but let's try it anyway. I'm just curious. I'm kind of curious what method it's calling create. Array to string conversion. Yeah, well, it's okay. Anyway, given the fact that it's array to string conversion, my assumption here is that, you know, obviously based on our test, we are passing in an array here, and of course it's just trying to send that down to the database. It has no idea this new encrypted cast that we're doing, and so it's taking an array and trying to make it a string when it's saving it to the database. So that feels like we're on the right track. I'd like to prove that a little bit more, but it feels like we're on the right track. So let's do this. Let's start kind of taking a peek at how we might be able to kind of get just this one to pass. And so we have this encrypted case down here. And so this is where it gets a little bit interesting. Because ultimately I want to leverage the underlying cast that would occur, we almost want to like check to see if the cast type is encrypted, and if so, we kind of want to pre-decrypt it in a way. So it's almost like I want to do a check up here and say something like if encrypted, then we're going to decrypt. And what that's going to allow us to do is actually take advantage of any kind of internal casting that happens just beyond that. So we're not going to have to build all of these. Now I only have the test for one of these, so again I'm kind of jumping ahead of myself. But yeah, based on what we saw in Get Decimal and some of the other things inside of here, we could very easily follow suit to kind of do the same thing. But for now, let's just prove that like this idea is going to work, and let's just add another encrypted array here. And what we're going to do is we're going to kind of cheat and just borrow this from JSON bit first. So when we cast an attribute, we're going to cast it from, in this case, which should be the decode, yes. So what we'd want to do is we'd want to unwrap this backwards. So first we'd want to unencrypt the string, and then we'd want to kind of unJSON it. So let's try this and just kind of see how far we get. I would expect at this point that our test passes a little bit farther, but maybe half of it fails, meaning the decryption or encryption half. So let's find out. Okay, we still have an array to string conversion. It doesn't seem to be in a different spot, unfortunately. So again, unclear. I thought we might get lucky and get a little bit farther, but this is coming out, not in. So we kind of probably need to do the in. So let's figure that out. So not get attribute, which is what ultimately calls that method we were just in. So we kind of need like the set attribute to work. So let's go take a look at that. Set attribute. Okay. So here we say, is it a date cast? Is it a class cast? Is it a JSON cast? Is it all these different types of casts, right? And then finally, is it encrypted castable? That's what we added the other day. So it's probably a scenario where this is going to end up having to get a little bit higher up. But for now, let's just change this ourselves to be is encrypted castable. So let's do this. Let's say if key, and again, this is not the final code. This is just a bit of a hack here. So cast attribute is JSON. We see the value is that. Where's key coming from? That's not what I'm after. Is castable based on key. Yeah, so key is what we want. Encrypted array. And again, we'll just kind of fake this out a little bit. So what we're going to do is, again, kind of cheat this just a bit. And we're going to go ahead and pre-decrypt the value based on the key, which should be fine. I don't even think we use key in here at all, so we could probably get rid of that. And then here, we could say something like key is now array, right? Or yeah, key becomes array. So we're going to drop that encrypted portion off of it. And again, this is just a very quick hack to see if we can get a little farther with our tests. So we still have an array to string conversion. So this is totally in a different spot of the application. So let's make sure we've got our test set up correctly. Encrypted cast, create secret array. Secret array, we're unguarded. There shouldn't be anything wrong there. And what's our cast? Encrypted array. All right. So it's definitely not seeing that as, it's not seeing that as an array kind of as high up as I want it to. Let's see if it's even getting this far. Hello. Yeah, it's definitely not getting that far. What do we got in the chat? You first need to make array top a string and then encrypt it. Place is right, just wrong order. Okay. Set attribute. First we will check for the presence of a mutator for the set operator. Okay. Is date, is class castable. This dot cast attribute as encrypted string. Okay. You need to first make array top. I don't know what that means. Array top a string. Yeah, sorry, don't understand what you mean there. It sounds like you're trying to say the order of operations of where this is probably wrong. So I'm wondering where else would it go though? We should get set attribute with, yeah, let's just kind of prove that. Are we getting higher up and just bailing out earlier? Let's see what key is. Secret ID and secret array. So wait a second, key is key not what we're after? No, key is what we're after. The key and value here are like throwing me off today for some reason. Key should be encrypted data, but when I print out key up here, it says secret array. So did I plug these in the wrong way or something? No? Nope. That's good. Ah, too far, sorry. You're getting an array. Place is right, just wrong order. You're getting an array. Yeah, I don't know. Don't know what you're saying, sorry. Set class attribute. Let's see if we're getting down here. I mean, key is not encrypted array is part of the problem, which is strange. Because, yeah, see, we're getting there. It's value that we're after, right? Or no, the value would be the array itself. Yeah. Is JSON castable? Key. Oh, has cast. I see. We're not far enough. I gotcha. That's why key matters here. There we go. Yeah, there's a different, there we go. There's a different bit there. This is an incomplete test. What I need to do here is test this has key thing. So this has cast key. Yeah, that check was just too weak. It wasn't. That's why I was confused on key and value. Okay, I think we're in a better place now. We should see a dump hello once I have the proper PHP syntax. So let's take this out. There we go, dump hello, and now we're getting a little farther down in the stack. Okay, makes more sense now. There we go. Okay, so we're getting to where we want to get. No matching handler found for encrypt string key 1 value. Either the method was unexpected. Okay. So we are not calling encrypt string on an array, which we really shouldn't. So we should be calling encrypt string with the JSON encoded value. So I think, Adrian, this might have been what you were trying to talk about a second ago. I think we have coming out okay, but I think going back in is now probably an issue. And again, I might have just done the wrong check. So let's go find that a little lower in the code. Get a drink here. Where'd that go? Encrypted array. There we go. are we getting here is now kind of my question. Let's say here. We are not getting here. Okay. Why would we not be getting this low? So we have set, there's kind of three places we need to be. Oh, you know what? We probably need it here too, because it's not going to be deemed a primitive cast type, so it's probably going to miss some other checks. So let's just slow down and go back through these just a sec. We've got add casts, and we have set attribute. Okay, and we've taken care of this part. Theoretically, what we've done here is unencrypt it, which let's see what that value looks like. Maybe again our test is just set up wrong. So we're going to unencrypt it, and we're not even getting there anymore. Why would we not be getting to dump value? Ooh, what does this do? Return encrypt. Oh, that's where we're failing. Okay. So we're passing this. We're passing this an array. We're passing this an array. Cast attribute as encrypted string. So we encrypt it. The set attribute part is wrong inside the if. Why would it be wrong? Okay, so yeah, I think maybe I have this backwards. Let's think about this. I'm going to ignore the chat for a minute. When we come in from set attribute, theoretically, when we're setting the attribute, you should have the casted type. So it should be an array. And we would then want to serialize it and then encrypt it. And then when you are accessing it from the database, we would want to decrypt it and then cast it. So I think my order of operations is probably just backwards. Yeah. Which I think, again, is probably what you're saying in the chat, but it's taken me a second to unwind it on this Friday afternoon. It also just intensely started raining here, so the thunder is, I thought somebody was stomping around the house. Okay, so this is what we want, and then we would want to, then we would want to do this here. So to your point, we have this key value, and then what is it afterwards? Is it anything? Oh, well, it's not going to be anything because we'd have to trick it to get decoded up here. Yeah, so we'd kind of have to say cast attribute as JSON. Yeah. There we go. Yeah, okay, so we're going to have to trick this a little bit. So let's just let's make it ugly for a second, and then let's make it pretty. So I'm going to put this up here. That should make us cast it as JSON. So now when we get down here, we should have some kind of encrypted value. We're still not getting that far though. So let's make sure we're getting in here dump as JSON. Alright, so we're not getting in there either. Okay, so has cast. Why would we not be getting in here? Oh, it has to be an OR. There we go. So let's change this to an OR, tighten up that logic. There we go. That's a lot better. Okay, so as JSON, now we have the JSON field, and then we're getting our decrypted, we're getting our encrypted string secret array. Okay, cool. So table encrypted cast has no column named array. Yeah, well, that makes sense. I'm kind of hacking the names here, which I don't want to do anymore. So let's undo that. And supposedly everything passes. Wow, that's kind of scary. That's very scary, actually. Okay, so let's see. All right, here, where do we have here? Yep. There we go. Okay, so the decryption was actually correct. It's actually correct what we wanted to do there. It just wasn't correct when we were unpacking it. I was doing it the same way, which makes sense. Yeah, now we're going to need to know if it's an object or not an object. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write the tests for the rest of these different values pretty quickly, and then we're going to just make it work with what we've built, and then we'll make it prettier, okay? So that's just kind of the way in which I work. I think for me, like if I try to break all that off, like that was already a little mind-bending, again, especially on a Friday afternoon, like, you know, cast from encrypted and cast to decrypted and as decrypted and from JSON. Just the from and as and to and what, I don't know, sometimes that was throwing me off. Anyway, let's model this after the next stuff. So let's go with JSON, which I don't even honestly know if JSON, the test is different. So let's take a look at that casts and kind of, again, just model it off what already exists. So we have objects are castable. Great, that's definitely going to be a different thing, and so is collection. And then, yeah, a string's worth of JSON. So yeah, that I guess we could take this as the value. Let's do it. So let's just kind of copy these one by one. So we have JSON. Okay, so test JSON is castable. And I may want to change these to like encrypted or something in a minute, but that's okay. Okay, so we're going to pass in this, and yeah, we really wouldn't, I guess we really wouldn't change this at all. That's kind of strange. We'll kind of see. I feel like this is going to be incorrect now, but that's okay. And then when we encrypt it, we need to change this to JSON. So let's call this JSON. Whoops, forgot two of them there. JSON, cool. And let's move on to object and then collection. I think that JSON one's probably weird. So test JSON or test object is castable. All right, and let's borrow from the object setup that we have here. Cool. So there's our object setup. And we would kind of expect to be object. And then down here we would just be object. Cool. All right. And we're going to do object. All right. And again, this setup is probably a bit wrong. Or well, no, it's still going to be serialized as JSON. So it's JSON all the way through. So it's kind of like a lot of these tests are pretty redundant. We'll see if there's a way to clean them up later, but let's just finish writing them for now and kind of see that they're failing for the right reasons. Okay, so we got this new collection now instead. So let's drop that into here. All right. Yeah, that object's kind of ugly. We'll come back to that. All right, and then we would want to assert, oh, I like this instance of, that's nice. Let's do that. So it's an instance of collection, right? And this gets changed to collection here in a second. And then, yeah, I like this get. That's nice. Get. key 1 is value, right? Nice. All right, cool. And then let's change all this to be collection. Oops, not that. I'll fix that. No, I won't. All right. Crap. I wish you could, like, I don't know the way in PHP Storm to tell it to only look for strings, but we can change that back. Not that. Collection. And this should say collection too. And then, yeah, see, this is why I don't name these things that. I like subject here. That just feels better to me. Okay, oh, what do we have here? It would be cleaner if we first refactor JSON array stuff to be a custom cast class, so it would be easier to add more complex casts, also internal without having. Yeah, that seems like a separate PR to me. Cool. Okay, let's review this because I definitely know that some of that is automatically going to fail. Okay, so when you have JSON castable, we've got JSON, we're going to pass in the JSON data and get it back out. Secret JSON, secret. Okay, so at least the naming is all good there. Let's check this one. Object, 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 object. Kind of confusing, but it works. Okay, yeah, this was wrong, so I knew one of those was wrong. And then yeah, this is kind of not going to be the same. So let's do something here like assert instance of. I like that instance of test. That was nice. std class, cool. And then let's add that too. Good. And then now we know it's a class, and we can say something like key 1 should be value. I like that. Okay, let's run this and watch a lot of stuff break. Okay, so object of class, standard class could not be converted to a string. Okay, so that makes sense based on what we just saw with the array stuff. And then test JSON is castable, failed asserting that key 1, value 1 is identical to key value. All right, test collection is castable, failed asserting that row in the encrypted casts matches the attribute. That actually got farther than I thought it would. That's kind of interesting. Huh. Yeah, that's very interesting. All right, anyway, let's go back and let's start the other way this time to see this kind of start to pass a bit more. So theoretically, I should just be able to add encrypted JSON here and kind of see that this is getting a bit farther. Or you know what, let's try one that's a bit more interesting. Let's try something like collection. And I feel like we should get a much cleaner error. And let's filter that down as well to just kind of test this. Oh, PHP unit and all your options. There we go. All right, failed asserting that encrypted secret collection string is an instance of Illuminate support collection. Okay, that makes sense. So we're actually getting farther down, but now when we're trying to unencrypt it, it's just kind of blowing up. So, hey Nuno, what's going on, man? Thanks for joining. It's gotta be late where you are. All right, let's pull this out the other way. Okay, so let's go down to our, where was that? Encrypted array. Yeah, so let's add another one here for collection. It's kind of starting to get a little bit gross. And let's do the same thing this actually from JSON and then cast it to a base collection. Okay, so again, we're just gonna borrow this for now. This is all pretty gross, but I want to get all these tests passing and then I want to focus on the refactor. So let's change this to encrypted. And now we have this encrypted collection. And we would want to decode it now. So just a nice big nasty chain there. Alright, now we have method encrypted secret collection string. Should be called exactly one times, but called twice. Why would you be called twice? Why are you called twice? Let's find out. Dump value. Sure enough, it is called twice. Who and why? Why would you be called twice? Why are you called twice? You should not be called twice. Is it being called twice because we have other things? No, see, is null should be fine. Did I not put it in this array? I thought I did. Encrypted collection. Let's find out. Skipping key. I'm just curious, is it like, no? It's not that it's null. Why would you be decrypted twice? Why would you be decrypted twice? Let's see if it tells us. Count validator exact. Yeah, unfortunately, it does not tell us exactly the second time or the second instance in which it was called. That would be so much nicer if it did. All right. Base collection from JSON from encrypted string. All right, let's see this test here. We definitely are going to give back, so we're definitely giving back what we want. So just for giggles, let's turn this on twice and just kind of see if that passes, and it does. Okay, so I just need to better understand why would collection behave differently where it's somehow getting decrypted twice? It would get sent in. It probably gets referenced within the application. Oh, is it because we're doing... I wonder if it's because if we're doing this. Let's find out. Let's comment that assertion out and see if it runs. It does. That's what it is. Oh my gosh. That's kind of inefficient, to be honest. I know it's safe. I know based on input and output, the safest thing to do is just always encrypted and decrypted, but that seems really, really expensive. Especially for like, even beyond the encryption, especially for like casting to like these objects back and forth. Every time you access or mutate it, it's always getting encrypted. It's always getting cast. That seems interesting. So anyway, we solved why we're getting that twice now. So I'm fine to put that here because now I understand it. But it just, I think, again, I could see based on all the mutation of like models and especially model data like back and forth within your application, I could see it being easier, quote unquote, and not having to worry about tracking and memory and whatever, to just always kind of serialize it and deserialize it, so to speak, because that's effectively what you're doing when you're casting some of these things, especially these more complex casts. But yeah, part of me feels like holding the current value in memory shouldn't be more expensive than the constant serializing and deserializing of it. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to make any. Again, I don't want to speculate. But we've answered the question of why twice it was happening. So I think collection is good. Let's drop the filter and let's just let these other ones run. And again, see if we can finish them out. So let's tackle this class next. So now that we're getting the hang of it, this one should be a bit easier. We should be able to just go up kind of like we are to object and just pass this additional second property here. So let's just borrow this and we'll turn that into object. And now we'll pass the second parameter to true, excuse me, to make sure that that's objectified. We'll add object to our primitive options here as well, so object. And then of course, we also need to, in the mutator of all this, do this fancy dance as well here. So we will change this, ooh, does this know? I think that's gonna be different, the from JSON. Does it need to know that it's an object? No. Initially it's just serializing it, so it doesn't matter. There's no additional parameter. Okay. So encrypted object. So that'll get us in here, and then same thing here. We want to make sure to decrypt that string. So encrypted object. Okay. Failed asserting that is identical to array. Oh, this is both of them. Let's focus on this one. Yes, called two times, but yeah, it's called twice, but only expected once. Same drill here because we are secret object and then accessing the key. That's effectively happening twice. So twice, a bit ugly, but whatever. Okay, now we're just down to the one failure. That was a little confusing, but there were two failures there. Now we're just down to the one, and this is the test JSON is castable. And like I said before, I really don't think the test setup was correct here because it just felt a little too easy. We're just passing in a JSON string. There's kind of nothing to do with that JSON string. So let's just go back to our handy dandy benchmark test here and take a look at what it was doing here, which is basic string as JSON field. Yeah, JSON string as JSON field. Yeah, it's not doing JSON string as JSON field, and we're saying both of them are JSON. So let's do the dance of adding our stuff in model and just see where we land. Again, that still feels like a little bit of a contrived test. Doesn't feel like we're really testing anything, but there's one that exists for the JSON bit, so let's do it here too. So alphabetical order, we'll say JSON. Let's go find wherever we're doing object. And this could actually just pop here, so we'll say that'll be an easy one. JSON. And then now for the goofy dance. And again, we're gonna clean this up here in just a minute, but I like to kind of do it the hard way, feel the pain, feel the repetition, feel that whole breaking of dry, no pre-architecting, and just kind of getting a feel of like, clearly at this point we've changed these same 4 spots in this file every time we're adding one of these. So just as, is JSON castable and is decimal and those kind of things came to fruition, we're clearly going to have some kind of is encrypted castable type method here in just a minute. But I like to have all my tests passing, so let's finish this up first. No matching handler found for key value. Either the method was unexpected or its argument. Okay, so it looks to me like our JSON got double encrypted. And that's the part that I was kind of interested in. So, is JSON castable? Does include JSON. Let's make sure we got our test set up correct. Oops, that's the wrong one. So encrypted JSON. Okay, cool. Just wanted to make sure I didn't say JSON or something. It happens sometimes. And let's look at our test one more time. Okay, when we pass this in, when we pass in a JSON string, there's really no reason that we would need to JSON decode it, right? Or encode it. There's no reason to JSON encode it when we set the attribute. That's why I'm curious. How does this actually behave? Is there like a special test where it determines if it was already castable or not? Let's find out. Ah, I thought when you hit PHP Storm back it went to the same file, but it's going to the other file. Is JSON castable? Alright, where's this used? Okay. So is JSON castable includes JSON, that makes sense. And then we're going to cast it. So as JSON, we just straight encode it. So here's kind of our catch here. We really don't want to be encoding that because it's already encoded. Is that just like a misuse of the JSON field? It seems like it. Let's go look at this method a little bit more. Okay, so has set mutator. So we're setting the attribute. It's already a string in our test, right? So we're setting this here, secret JSON. It's already a JSON string. They're doing the same thing in the test, JSON string, and they should get that same value back out. Yeah, it feels like it would double encode it as well there, but it's not. That's kind of strange. It's kind of strange to me. Are we missing something on the other side? Where else do we have encrypted JSON? There, and here. And when we have JSON up here, we say from JSON, and we just don't object it. That should all be fine. Get cast type. What does this do? Ooh, is there anything special here? No. Date cast, decimal cast, yeah, okay. Nothing fancy there. And we have it in the primitive types. Yeah, why are you getting double encoded? The original test is kind of mind-bending to me too, but again, I don't know if it's just because it's Friday afternoon or what. There's no reason when I set the attribute, to me it feels like there's no reason when I set the attribute, if it's already a JSON string, that I would JSON encode it, right? And that's what's happening. It's basically getting double JSON encoded, and then it's not our assertions, failing to encrypt the string. Maybe it's getting JSON encoded the other way. Let's find out. Let's throw some, when in doubt, debug it out, right? So let's do a dump here on value, and let's steal this filter. Filter equals boom. Oh, of course the strings are castable. JSON is castable. Copied the wrong one. JSON is castable. There we go. Okay. So yeah, see? There we go. There is our double encoded JSON value. See, it's quoted. It's quoted within quotes. It might be hard to see with the color scheme I have, but so that is most definitely our issue. So the way they do it in JSON JSON string as JSON field. JSON string as JSON field is JSON. Okay. And I have secret JSON as encrypted JSON. My guess is there's somewhere else in set attributes that pre-cleans this up. So it already pre-turned it into JSON, and we just missed it somewhere. So what I want to do is I want to see everywhere this from JSON is called, because I bet you it's going to give us a clue on where some of these other spots are. Okay, so obviously there's one here, there's one here. Those all make sense. That makes sense. Ours makes sense. Get array attribute by key. What is this? Get an array attribute. Okay. Okay. From JSON itself. Okay, so that's actually really it. So let's go back to our this little spot and let's dump value here. And this is, just to give us a little more clarity, this is going to be our cast attribute test, or our dump. Let's just see what this looks like. Okay. Key value 1. Yeah. So we're not even getting that far, so it's definitely happening higher up. So it's definitely happening in this accessor. What do we have in the chat here? Their test uses also a JSON field in the table itself, or question mark. Yes, you're right. That is, yes, it is something that could play a factor, I guess. But part of me feels like there's just a little catch that I'm missing, because here, this is before it's even in the database, right? And I'm sure if we went back and like ran this test and filtered this, we would probably see that when it got to that same line in the code that this was probably already, it's not getting double encrypted, I guess is what I'm going to try to say. And you know what? Why not? Let's see if that's true or not. Maybe I'm wrong. If so, maybe we don't need that particular test in our case because it's just not a scenario that would ever happen. I mean, we've kind of proven that it works for array. That's kind of what the same test should be, in my opinion. But I do want to make sure, you know, we cover all the same bases. So let's do this. Let's run this. It is double encoded. So theirs gets double encoded. Strange, but it gets double encoded and it passes, by the way. Why would that? How does that work? That's very strange. And then when you access it, how are we accessing this? Yeah, see, they're not doing any kind of encryption or anything like that, so like it's a little bit interesting. I mean, we could easily make this double encoded and kind of just see what happens. You know, let it play on, but it's just that feels really, really weird to me. Like, why do we have a double encoded string? You know, I don't know, but the other test is doing it in fairness. I don't know why. Well, I do know why, but it feels wrong, I guess. But let's just double encode this and kind of see if our test plays on and or just automatically passes. And it does. That's really strange to me. That's not what I would expect. I'm sure there's totally a reason for it, but it doesn't make sense to me that we're double encoding that string, but it works, and the other test behaves this way, which is predated code. So it's kind of just how Laravel works, I guess. You can pass in a JSON string value, and it just double encodes it, and then that's what ends up getting encrypted, and then. But it's just weird because, in fairness, it's gonna come out this way now, right? Like that's kind of the more accurate test. So I feel like, yeah, our test is passing, but this is where that integration bit, yeah, see, this is where that integration bit kind of like scares me. Is because we're controlling the way in the encryptor works, and we're not really allowing it to play all the way through. And that's why I think this JSON castable bit is wrong, at least for the purposes of encryption. I think it works for the purposes of a string for some reason. Can't explain why, but it does. I'm going to have to understand that a little bit better. I definitely don't want to open the PR with this. I feel like something about this is wrong. I can't put my finger on it though. All right, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna move past this. I'm gonna skip this. Let's just mark it as skipped. This mark test is incomplete. There we go. Why is this double encoding? Yeah. All right. Let's see if this plays on. All right, cool. So we have our stuff. That's fine. But the point is, other than our incomplete test and our silly debugs, everything is passing. So I'm going to come back to this before submitting the PR. But in the interest of kind of finishing out the live stream and better understanding that, let's go ahead and start a bit of that refactor that we were kind of talking about before. So I think these are okay, all the different potential encrypted options. But let's go ahead and make some of those methods like, is whatever, right? Just to kind of help out with that. So I think what I'd like to do is let's start with this section. Yeah, let's start with this section. And I think what I'd like to do is up here, let's change this cast type just a bit, right? So let's do something like dump cast type. And I think this is where we would want to kind of just pre-decrypt the value and then let the rest play on, right? Because we're going to be encrypted, and then we're encrypted array and yada yada. So I think what we could do is actually pre-decrypt that value and then just tweak the cast type and allow the rest to kind of work. So what I want to do is instead say something like if this is JSON castable. Yeah, so let's say is encrypted castable, which we already have. Awesome. So we'll test that with, I guess, the cast type. Yeah. So if the cast type is encrypted castable, and here's where we can just kind of add all of them, or we could do a fancy other test. I kind of like being explicit, so I'm just going to add encrypted array and, all of them. We could do the fancy like, hey, starts with encrypted, but that leaves you open in your code to set like some weird encrypted colon whatever, and I'd rather it just not be recognized. I feel like for a framework, like you want to be a little more explicit in code than you might be within your own application. Just because I don't want to leave anything open here where someone could put that in and it just works, because I'm only doing a prefix check. So collection, just thinking alphabetically here, encrypted JSON, and then encrypted object. All right. And of course now we got some stuff that's broken, which makes sense. So let's go back a level here. And in here I just want to dump that we're here. All right. So we're failing in some other spots now because this is being used elsewhere, and I just beefed this up now, which is probably going to be a bit of an issue. Yeah, where else does that get checked? Yeah, see, we're doing it in both spots here now. Yeah, there's kind of no reason to do it in that spot. Again, we'll clean that up here in a second. What I would have expected, though, is if we do this, and now we say something like, now we can do a check to pull off, you know, the actual cast type. But either way, we're basically going to do this. Ooh. All of these straight return. It's a little bit gross. You can how remove the first if block. You can how. Alright. So let's do value equals that. Alright. And then here's where it gets a little tricky. We would kind of want to chop off the first part of the encrypted bit. Yeah. That's kind of where it gets interesting. We're going to do something like cast type equals str before, or well, it's actually after. Subject is going to be cast type, and we'll just say after encrypted. And again, this is just being explicit. I'm not 100% on that code. And what we can do now is actually in encrypted, we would just return the value, and theoretically, we should be able to get rid of all the rest of those that we added. So if it's encrypted at this point, then we know it's just a plain old original encrypted type. Otherwise, we should have converted the cast type out, and we can just kind of leave that in there for a sec. So, I'm not happy that all these other things are failing, because really they shouldn't, since we're only changing one thing at a time. But my guess is that because I changed this, something else is now getting triggered. So, alright, cool. Hey Simon, how's it going? Hey, is it Monir? Monir? How's it going? Thanks for joining. Adrian, yeah, you can remove the first if block. I'm not sure where you were talking about. I've jumped around a little bit. But if you see something, let me know. I'm assuming you probably mean this one, which is accurate. Yeah, this should be able to go away now because we know it's one of those casts now, right? I think the problem is we're never getting into that other one because I think I just messed up the key in cast types yet again. I think I did that again. So let me go back. I think I realized the mistake here again. So let's see where this is getting. Yeah, I think cast type is not what we're supposed to be passing in. We're supposed to be passing in key here. There we go. Let's run this. Yes, that was my issue. Yeah, I keep screwing that up. I'm thinking that this method is testing the cast type, but really it's testing the attribute if it has that cast, which makes sense when you go down and look at this method. But in my mind, for some reason, this is encrypted castable past the castable name, and then it tells you. That was my issue. Okay, cool. So everything's still passing. We've cleaned this up a bit. The cast types we can see now turn into array, object, collection, eventually JSON when we clean that up. So good, that's what we wanted. This is probably not necessarily Laravel worthy. Yeah, we'll probably want to tweak that just a bit. The fact that I'm kind of overriding value and whatever else is a little bit nasty. So I think I'll clean this up even more to make it Laravel-esque. But let's finalize the one other side of this where we were kind of hacking. Where was that? Or this. Yeah, this guy. This is gross. Okay. So if something is JSON castable, I'm reluctant to put in here these additional values, but I kind of wonder if they should go here. So let's just try it out, right? Let's try it out. So let's go back and drop this off. We might need to make like another special bit there, but let's just see what happens. All right, everything passes here, but I'm not 100% on that. So let's run all the tests within the database folder. Okay, so short of my crazy output, everything else seems to still pass. So I haven't broken anything by just tacking those on to the JSON value stuff. And just possibly, I wonder if this somehow now magically works. No, it still fails. Part of me was hoping that maybe that double encoding would have gotten taken care of because, now it's considered a JSON castable field. But not so lucky. Let's bring that mark incomplete back and run ours again. Okay, so let's review these changes and make sure I get rid of all my debugs. This is why I really like git add-p. We've hacked on this for an hour now, definitely ran into some speed bumps. So I just kind of want to, this gives me that chance to just slow down and make sure like all these changes are what I want instead of scrolling through like that 1,000-line file. So this is definitely good, nice and alphabetical, feels nice. I want to clean this up a bit more, but as far as like code and formatting and no, poor man's debugging, that all looks good. This looks good as well. So here's a dump, so I'm going to say no. And then we added some additional JSON castable types here. So yes. And we added an additional encrypted castable types here. Yes. And in our tests, I'm importing collection. That makes sense. And everything in the test is probably fine because we know we didn't put any debugging there and the test is passing, so it's good. So really, if we take a look at this, we really only changed maybe 6 lines of code. So we added the encrypted, the new encrypted options with these additional formats. We've got this kind of clunky method that to me doesn't feel very Laravel-esque. So I'm going to give that some more thought maybe later today or over the weekend. This feels totally fine. We just straight return the value. There's an argument to be made. We could just say default there, but that's okay. And then we're not adding the dump. And of course, we added the new castable keys to the appropriate arrays to make them work. So I think this is pretty good. Short of that one little if statement, I think this is pretty streamlined. It leverages everything that's already in there. It's already nice, tight methods. So yeah, I think if we can just clean up, we'll drop that little dump. And then if we can just clean up that one little spot where we have, is, what do we call that, is encrypted castable. This one, yeah. I just want to clean that up a bit more, right? I'm totally fine that value does what it does there, but I'm not happy. I'm not happy about the other stuff. You know, you could do something. You could do something like really really gross. Like you could actually put that test like here and just run all three of those and then flip them. Um, that would make this case statement huge though. So I'm not a huge fan of that one. Yeah, yeah, that's kind of gross. Yeah, I'll think on this a bit more. If anybody comes up with a fancy idea of how they might want to clean up that little last bit of code, great. Shoot it to me on Twitter or whatnot. But yeah, I think that was decent for a end of the day end of the day bit there. What else do we have? You can remove the case for encrypted because it returns value per default. Does it? Yes, it does. Yeah, cool. Um, I guess the only thing that would concern me here, I guess you would never get in a class castable because you'd always end up being a primitive type. So yeah, that's probably fine to do. Yeah, you're right. We could probably just get rid of that one now. Just decrypt it. Yeah, just take care of it by default and then allow it to play on. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of this part. If it was just this, it would be fine. But the double if there doesn't feel very Laravel-esque. So anyway, I'll continue thinking on it. Thanks everybody for joining me live for this little part two. Hopefully we'll see this get added because again the original PR was already merged out there. So I think this is a nice little fast follow to do some of the things that people were mentioning in the comments and seemed to like. So hopefully this will be available next week in Laravel 8.12 on Tuesday. So see y'all then.